Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Let's get down to the transcript of the interviews yesterday with Chris Watts and CBI agents Tammy Lee and Graham Coder, along with Detective Dave Baumhalver. Let's go through all of that. Now, there was a lot to listen to yesterday, about 8 hours worth of audio tape. I've gone through it, but as you know, if you've gone through it, you want to go through it again. You're looking for words, phrases that he uses, and different things we discussed. My main thoughts last night in the live, if you haven't seen that, I will link it. And I took into consideration your thoughts from the live chat. Today I want to go through the transcript. This is going to be done over several videos, so today I'm going to go verbatim through the transcript. I have some other notes on the side about what I heard. Then I want to take a look, probably tomorrow, more in depth at the first part and nuances and things that he left out or things that he put in there, and my feelings about why I feel this is not a truthful confession. Okay, I think he's covering for someone, and I can point out little bits and pieces that show me that he's not telling the truth. That's my opinion. Yours may differ, and that's fine, but that's why we can discuss this. So let's go through the transcript today. I will also have another video because we've just been hit with crazy amount of stuff this week with the search warrants in the Patrick Frazee case, because there is some very interesting information in there about the case, and I have lots of new updates on that case, so that will be another video. So I'm trying to get these out. These are going to be premieres with the live chat, so I'll be chatting with you live when these premiere, and it just lets me stay on track, and a lot of you like the premiere videos when we're discussing information like this. So let's take a look at these transcripts. So on February 18th at approximately 7:45 a.m., the CBI agent Tammy Lee, along with FBI of Investigation Special Agent Graham Coder, okay, so it was FBI, CBI, and Frederick Police Department Detective Dave Baumhalver arrived at the correctional facility that houses Chris Watts concerning the murder of his pregnant wife and daughters, as well as to discuss other individuals who have claimed to have had an affair with Watts during his marriage. Now, when they meet with him, they tell him that his case is closed, but they don't say the case is closed or everyone's case is closed, and it's obvious they are still continuing the investigation. So they say they're going on about concerning the murder of his pregnant wife, Shanann, and their two young daughters, Bella, age 4, CC, age 3, Celeste, CC, age 3. In addition, information was provided during the investigation to suggest that Watts may have had additional affairs during his marriage with a man named Trent Bolt and a female named Amanda McMahon. Watts was unable to be interviewed about Bolt and McMahon prior to being moved out of state by the Colorado Department of Corrections. Upon arrival to the prison, they were escorted into a large open room, which was the computer room, which the staff referred to as the computer room. The room contained empty cubicles with chairs and no computers, which lined the walls. We activated our covert digital recording devices and also used several covert video recording devices. So everyone's asking, well, if they have video recording devices, why don't we get to see video? They may release it in the weeks to come, the days to come, not sure. We hope so. We'd like to see that video. Okay. Watts was brought into the room a short time later, and we asked if he remembered us. Watts looked puzzled for a brief second and then indicated he recalled who we were. We asked Watts how he was doing, and he said good, and asked how we were doing. Watts said he did not expect to see us. Special Agent Coder initiated the interview with Watts and explained that they were not there to speak with him about an open investigation, and that his life and situation was unique, and he was a unique individual, is what Coder was saying, and that I'm going to just go off of what I heard because I just want to elaborate on that. They said, and this is a reason that many of us are not able to shake this case, because it is such a unique case, and Chris Watts is really very different from any police interrogation video I've seen, any true crime case that I've studied. There is something very, very different about this guy, and it's been picked up by the FBI, the CBI, and the detective at the Frederick Police Department, and they can't shake it either, and they talk to each other through that, and have a dialogue about this, and did you expect this from him? Did you not expect this from him? So that's one of the reasons too they want to come in their profiling and learn more about what is going on with this guy, and what he's really like, and why does he act this way, because he does some things that they would totally expect, he does things they wouldn't expect. It's just crazy. Coder also mentions that he's never had anyone in any type of a case, even remotely similar to this, that does the things Chris does. And a lot of that, I believe, is the apologizing, I'm sorry I made you come out here, I'm sorry I did this, sorry I lied to you, sorry, all this stuff. Okay. So, let's see here, where were we? So they asked Watts if he's available to speak with them, and he answered definitely. And then Special Agent Coder told Watts if there was something he didn't want to talk about, that was okay, and to tell them if he needed a bathroom break or a water break. Watts explained he enjoyed being in this prison much more than he did the Weld County Jail in Colorado. Watts said that when he was in the jail in Colorado, other inmates would constantly yell at him from their cells, giving Watts advice on how he could kill himself in his cell and what the other inmates would do to him given the chance. Watts said everyone in the jail knew him and they knew why he was there. Watts explained the jail had to lock down all of the other inmates just for him to walk down the hallway. Watts said he never actually saw the inmates in the Weld County Jail, but he could hear them yell at him. Well, we remember this when we were going through the behavior logs, right? We remember that from when he was in Weld County Jail. Watts said that he has been able to call his father, his mother, and sister since he's been incarcerated. Watts said he wasn't sure what his parents were going to say at his sentencing hearing in Colorado and didn't expect them to be present since they had just returned to North Carolina. Coder asked Watts if they could start asking him questions. Watts said, go ahead. Coder asked Watts if he knew the case was a national story, and Watts said he learned it was after his attorney told him that there are people in Australia talking about this case. Watts said he received numerous letters with no return addresses, but he was only allowed to read them and could not keep the letters in his cell. Watts said there was a person who lived in Broomfield, Colorado, who wrote him 4 times a week and wanted to come and visit him. Watts said that he also had people write him that told him he was a monster. Okay, so with regard to Trent Bolt, Coder explained the investigation revealed numerous people have claimed to have known, dated, or had sexual relations with Watts. Coder asked Watts if he could have heard about the people claiming to have... Coder asked Watts if he heard about the people claiming to have affairs with him, and he said yes. His attorney, John Walsh, told him that a male from Wyoming named Trent Bolt claimed to have had an affair with him. Coder explained Bolt's claims, and Watts denied knowing or having a relationship with him. So Coder did go into some detail about Bolt saying that he had been sitting in Chris's truck with his girls and, numerous other things that the lip injections and stuff like that Chris had supposedly paid for. And, they said it was a waste of their time at the end of this. And I've told you all along, it doesn't add up. He doesn't know anything other than what's out there. And also, he had some type of an app making up these text messages. They were not coming from Chris's number, and there's nothing to connect them. There were no photos, nothing of all this time that they were supposedly having a relationship. Yeah, no. So Chris had said he's never even been to Wyoming, and he indicated that he's never had any gay experiences or interest in the past. Watts said Bolt claimed to have met him on an application called WhatsApp, and Watts has never even heard of WhatsApp before. With regard to the woman and the Chick-fil-A from the Tinder hookup site, Detective Baumhaber asked Watts about Amanda McMahon. Watts said he didn't know McMahon. Detective B said she showed Watts a picture of her driver's license, which we've all seen in the discovery. And he said he's seen that picture because his attorney showed it to him. They asked him if he had a rendezvous with this woman in a Chick-fil-A parking lot, and Chris said he had only been to one Chick-fil-A in Colorado, and it was located in Broomfield off of Highway 7. So then they asked Watts if he wanted to see both Bolt and McMahon charged with a crime if it was warranted. He said no. Watts said there's always going to be people taking advantage of situations. He said wanting their 5 minutes of fame instead of 15 minutes of fame. And he said they really have to look inside themselves, and it's bringing them up on charges is not going to make any difference, and blah, 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 blah. But he just said don't. Now, whether they listen to that and don't bring any charges, or they do, they wanted to know at the end of the interview if he wanted to be named as a victim in that, and he said no. So that to me sounds like they are going to charge them with something, but does Chris want to be named as a victim on it? That's what I thought. Okay. Now, in regard to Chris's and Nicole's relationship, they asked if he felt comfortable telling him that he had affairs with other people. Watts said yes. Watts told him he only had an affair with Nikki, and Coders asked Watts if he ever had any one-night stands, and he said no. So now, regarding the relationship, it says around June 1st, 2018, he met Nikki at work at Anadarko. He had a gas meter that didn't work, and he took it to her to have it fixed, and she handled the gas meters. He said he then ran into her a few times in the office, and they chat about work. Around the fourth time bumping into her, he mentioned we moved from North Carolina. And she asked who he meant by we. And he took out his cell phone and showed her a picture of his daughters. She also saw a picture of Shanann on his locked screen. He said she was well aware that he was married and had children. And he knows that she lied when she said she didn't know he was married. He says that she was trying to save face. He has not talked to her since his arrest. He hopes that she hasn't written to him in a different name, an alias, that he does not recognize. He says he wasn't wearing a wedding ring at work because it was getting size since he had lost so much weight, it kept falling off. He mentions a few other things in the interview on the audio about shoveling snow and it flying off. Nikki texted him one day when he was working in the fields, and their text messages to each other continued. One day, he and Nikki's text messages kind of went to a different level. Nikki talked about them meeting up when he returned from a trip with Shanann to San Diego. He went to San Diego from June 22nd to the 26th, and after he returned home, he and Nikki met in a park in Thornton, Colorado. he and Nikki continued to see each other almost the entire month of July. He initially thought his relationship was just flirting at work with her. He wished he would have worked more out in the field, so he never got close to her. When he became a field coordinator, he was forced to spend more time in the office, where he would constantly run into Nikki. He wished he could talk to Nikki one last time to apologize to her about what happened and what she went through. He didn't know if she has received counseling or if she had to leave the state due to the publicity of this case. He went on again that, he feels bad because that was her dream job and all of that, right? And we went through that last night a bit. He said Nikki had refused to pick up the phone when his attorney had called her. He hopes that she has found normalcy because Anadarko was her dream job. And with regard to the question of if he loved her, he said, I felt like it was true. Okay, so he felt like Nikki pursued him, which was unusual for him. Remember, he pursued Shanann. He felt more in control when he was with her because she would ask his opinion on things and what he wanted to do. Yeah, he didn't see the manipulation. We went through that last night too. He said he could be himself around her, unlike Shanann. The first time he and Nikki went out, they went out to a movie, and the movie was sold out. So they did what she wanted to do, walk around and talk. Nikki wanted to go to a Shelby car museum in Boulder, which he really enjoyed. She wanted to go there because she was doing research on him and knew about his love of Mustangs and cars in general. He and Nikki went to a drag race, which reminded him of his childhood, another investigative manipulation. He and Nikki went camping in the Sand Dunes National Park again because she liked to do that, and he had never done that. Every time he opened up his phone and saw pictures of his wife and children, he questioned what he was doing with Nikki. Every time he was with Nikki, he said he felt like there was a blinder around his eyes. He has pictures of his wife and his daughters in his prison cell, and he talks to them every morning and every night. He has a book in his cell, which was the same book he used to read to Celeste. He reads the book to his daughters along with some scripture every night. He wished it never happened, and that he never had blinders over his eyes, so he could have seen what was going on. He stayed at Nikki's house almost every night that his wife and daughters were gone in North Carolina. He felt like he didn't have time at home alone to think about his marriage when Shanann and the girls were gone out of state. He went home after work, he ate dinner, he worked out, and then he would go over to Nikki's house. He slept over at Nikki's house almost the entire month of July. Being away from home allowed him to not think about being a father or a husband because he was not surrounded by reminders of his family. He wished he had met Nikki at work and kept it as a work relationship only. It feels like a roller coaster ride that I just keep punching a ticket on and could never get off. That Nikki wanted to have sex all the time. He never had to worry about saying something stupid when he was with her and never had to plan what he was going to say when he was with her. Nikki had asked him if he had ever strayed away before, and he told her no. Okay, so she was clearly testing the waters here. Am I the first one? Okay, good. That means you don't just do it and go back to her. Now I can manipulate the situation, get you where I want you. She was in control and she knew it, and she was doing everything. It was a manipulation effort. Okay. He told Nikki that he felt like she had a leash on him and she was able to tug him away from Shanann. Oh, and she loved hearing that and continued to tug on that leash. With regard to his relationship with Shanann, Chris explained his first date with Shanann, where Shanann said he wasn't her type. Chris said he always had to pursue Shanann, and he would do things like organize her medications inside a pill box. He said he went to Shanann's colonoscopy, and that's when she told him he was a keeper. He said his mother was always hesitant about Shanann. He was the baby of the family, never had a girlfriend in high school. He moved out of the house after high school graduation at 18 and never came back. His sister always moved back and forth with their parents, back in and out of the house. He met Shanann when he was 25. The longest relationship he had before Shanann was approximately 6 months, and it was someone that was getting out of a divorce that he was helping, kind of like the rebound guy. He is more reserved and goes with the flow, and Shanann made most of the decisions in the house. With regard to what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, he said Shanann arrived home at around 2 a.m. and he felt her get into bed. He felt Shanann stirring around in bed and felt like she knew he was having an affair. He had used his credit card when he went out to dinner with Nikki because he didn't have another Anadarko gift card and he couldn't ask Nikki to pay. Shanann started rubbing her hand on his leg or his chest, and they had sex at approximately 2:30 a.m. He said they had it in the missionary position. He felt like it was more of a test, that Shanann was using it as more of a test, is what he said. He felt strange when he had sex with Shanann and questioned who he was and who he had become. Having sex with her may have been a trigger point, or like you hit the push button on a bomb and it just blows up. He said that he and Shanann fell asleep after that. And when he woke up the next morning, he got ready for work and then returned to the bed, and he woke Shanann up to talk to her. He said Shanann was sleeping face down and rolled over on her back to talk to him. He felt like he had something to say to Shanann. He straddled Shanann on the bed around her waist. He believed Shanann initially thought he wanted to have sex with her again since he was on top of her. Shanann told him he was hurting the baby. He said Shanann and him talked for approximately 15 to 20 minutes with him in that same position, straddling her on top of her. He was concerned that Shanann knew about his affair and that she and the kids wouldn't be there when he got home from work that evening. He felt like either Shanann would take the kids away from the house or would lock him out when he tried to come home after work. He asked Shanann if they could cancel their couple's trip to Aspen. He asked her if they could move to Brighton so that they could get away from this house. He felt like going out on Saturday with Nikki and using the credit card was going to be the last straw. Shanann told him she knew that there was someone else and cried. He denied having an affair. He felt guilty, more guilty than ever before. He told Shanann he didn't think their marriage was going to work. He did not feel like he and Shanann were compatible with each other. Anything that's new, referring to his relationship with Nikki, always feels better than the old. He always felt nervous around Shanann and never felt like he could be himself. Shanann asked him, "What about last night?" Shanann hadn't taken off her bra and didn't wash her face. She got into bed, so she had mascara running down her face. But then he also talked about that mascara, and he asked Tammy if she knew it was something else. And I gave you my theories for why the mascara was running, because when he was strangling her, her eyes were watering, they were bloodshot, and I think that's what was making the mascara run. I don't believe she was up having this conversation with him. He said this conversation lasted less than 30 minutes. Shanann told him to get off of her and that she knew he had someone else. He couldn't bring himself to tell her about Nikki. He told Shanann he didn't love her, and Shanann said, "You're never going to see the kids again. You're never going to see them. Get off of me. Don't hurt the baby." He immediately put both of his hands around Shanann's neck and strangled her. Every time I think about it, I'm just like, did I know I was going to do that? Referring to strangling Shanann before I got on top of her? Like everything that happened that morning, I don't know. Like I try to go back in my head. I'm just like, I didn't want to do this, but I did it. Everything just kind of like, it felt like it was, I don't even want to say, it felt like I had to. It just felt like there was already something in my mind that was implanted that I was going to do. And when I woke up that morning, it was going to happen, and I had no control over it. Who implanted it in his mind? Who do you think? Could the the person have been in the house that was implanting it in his mind? Sentencing, he heard the prosecutor say that it takes 2 to 4 minutes to strangle someone to death. So he says, why couldn't I just let go? He doesn't want to know that he doesn't want to know what Shanann saw when she looked back at him while he was strangling her. Watts denied covering Shanann's head or face with anything while he strangled her. Shanann never fought back or screamed. He doesn't know why she didn't fight back. He believes Shanann might have been praying. He read the Bible, and it says, forgive these people for they do not know what they do. Doesn't really say what Christ says. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Okay. And maybe Shanann was saying that in her head at the time. When he was asked to take off his shirt so that they could check for defensive wounds, he said he knew immediately he didn't have any because Shanann never fought back. He does not recall Shanann's arms being pinned down by his knees. But if we go in that same thing that we always do with Chris when we reverse the order, he can recall Shanann's arms being pinned down by his knees. Sounds more like it if she was in that position. Otherwise, he put her in a sleeper hold or did it while she was turned over on her stomach, or could have put the oxycodone that he researched on the internet in one of his searches into that drink she drinks from Thrive, because he did mention that to Tammy about that drink she has every night before she goes to bed on the night side table, and it was there. I don't know if they've ever tested that to see if there were any drugs in that. Should have been tested. I feel like in the back of my head this was going to happen, and just like at the end of the conversation it was just like, that's what happened. I just wished I could have let go. Time seemed to stand still. He saw his life disappearing before his eyes, but he couldn't let go. It was like picturing someone around you holding your hands, holding you, and keeping you from letting go. Was there? He felt like he was in a rage, and he snapped. His attorney mentioned the crime of strangulation was passionate, and he doesn't understand how that could be passionate. That morning, it was a new type of fight. There was emotion at first, but it was more anger than anything else because there was no love there. I think it was more anger for me, and more like picturing someone around you holding your hands, holding you and keeping you from letting go. Was there? He felt like he was in a rage, and he snapped. His attorney mentioned the crime of strangulation was passionate, and he does not understand how that could be passionate. That morning, it was a new type of fight, he said. There was emotion at first, he says, but then there was more anger than anything else, because there was no love there. I think it was more anger from me and more like desperation from her. Shanann knew something wasn't right and wanted to fix it. After Shanann was gone, he didn't know what was happening and felt like it was a traumatic event. That sounds so contrived, so by his attorneys, you didn't know what was happening, or his parents, or his sister. It was a very traumatic event. You didn't know what was happening. It was like someone was guiding your hand. Someone was doing that. You were out of your mind. You didn't know what was happening. You didn't know what you did. It was a crime of passion. Remember Ronnie with the crime of passion? Okay. He wasn't in the right state of mind. He wasn't in control of his thoughts or actions. He didn't know what to do and didn't know what he had done. He was shaking and didn't know what had happened. Okay? There it is. There's that, there's that, I didn't know what happened. I was shaking. I didn't know what happened. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. People asked him why he didn't call 911, but no one knows what they would do in that same situation. After Shanann was dead, Bella walked into the bedroom holding her blanket and asked, "What's wrong with Mommy?" He believed Bella may have been woken up by the noise. He told Bella, "Mommy doesn't feel good." And Bella thought Shanann was sleeping. Okay, this goes along with what I said. You see, he gave more detail of Bella walking into the room with the blanket. When he mentions taking the girls out to the truck, he hardly mentions any details about that. Okay, how he carried them, what he carried with each girl. They asked him about a dog, and he's just like, he really doesn't Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I thought yeah, he doesn't remember what he did. It's so, like I said, the way he is and how he details everything. If he, I believe, would have had those girls, brought them out to the truck alive, he would have listed details. I got them out. I left them in their pajamas. I didn't get them dressed. I put shoes on them. I didn't put shoes on them. Each one had the blanket, 2 stuffed animals. I carried them out separately. This one waited here while I carried Bella out. You know, all of that. No mention. No mention. Okay. He told Bella, Mommy doesn't feel good. Bella thought Shanann was sleeping. He wrapped Shanann face down in the bed sheet, which was recovered at the oil site. Shanann was still wearing her shirt, bra, and underwear she had on when she got into bed. He tried to carry Shanann down the stairs and lost grip and ended up having to pull her down the stairs. Bella watched him drag Shanann down the stairs and began to cry. What's wrong with Mommy? He told Bella again, Mommy didn't feel good. Bella was a smart girl and knew what was going on. I don't know where I'm remembering someone saying something, it seems before this interview, that he got very upset with Bella and he was like, what the heck was that? I remember that distinctly. I don't know if he had said that somewhere, because it was before you. I don't know if that was, people were speculating that or what, but that seems so fresh in my mind that he got very upset with Bella. Maybe that's probably speculation. I don't know. It seems like it came from his mouth. Bella never touched Shanann or tried to wake her up. Bella followed him down the stairs. He backed his pickup into the driveway and put Shanann into the back of the seat or the floorboards. When he returned inside, Celeste was in her room and was starting to get out of bed. He believed the noise of Shanann's feet hitting the stairs as he dragged her down the stairs may have woken up Celeste. Bella and Celeste were light sleepers. Bella and Celeste were walking around the house. This is another thing. He doesn't mention where he had them corralled while he was making these multiple trips up and down the basement, in and out. Those girls would have been, following after him. He's not watching them. Would one of them stay down the basement? One of them went somewhere. Wouldn't they want a snack, a drink? You know what I'm saying? And yes, they're knowing something's wrong, but still, Cece is a very new 3-year-old. She just turned 3 in July, so yeah, she's not processing everything every minute, and kids of that age, things cease to exist when they're not seeing it right away, so that situation could have, out of sight for a minute. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. He's not saying enough about what is happening when he's running in and out and doing all this stuff, loading up that truck for as long as he did, and everything else. There's not enough details in it. Every time he sees pictures of Bella and Celeste, he doesn't understand how it all could have happened. Being a dad was the best part of life, and he took it all away. He felt like someone else had control over him that day, and he wasn't able to fight back. I wonder who that could be. When the prosecutor said Bella bit her tongue repeatedly, he wanted to bang his head up against the wall. At that point, he put his lunchbox in the truck, and then he put both Bella and Celeste in the back of his truck on the bench seat. But see, he doesn't mention the seat belts, and that is very, very, very unlike Chris, because he gives every detail of what he does. Shanann was lying on the floorboard. Bella said, "Is Mommy okay?" He told Bella and Celeste that Mommy would be fine. Bella and Celeste each had a blanket with them, and Celeste had a stuffed animal barking dog. But he didn't say that very matter-of-factly. They had to kind of take that out of him. He also, about those 2 black garbage bags, okay? Which I believe, Coder believed that Bella and Celeste were not alive and they were in those black garbage bags. He then explains them away, that he says he put them over Shanann in the truck, but he never mentioned doing that prior, okay? Never. and he normally outlines every step of what he does. He put a gas can in the back of his truck, and he felt like maybe he would get rid of himself at the same time. He didn't feel like he deserved to live or be on this earth after what happened. After everything that happened, he considered taking his own life as well. He didn't commit suicide because he felt like if he did at the oil site, he may have ended up hurting more people than just himself. Really? I guess he didn't consider that killing his children, as he says, at the oil site would hurt more people than just himself. Killing Shanann would hurt more people than just himself. But he only thought about it when it came down to killing himself. Very interesting, Chris. He knew that there were other people in the area. He didn't want something to catch fire or blow up. Right. Yeah. That's what he's worried about, right? Other people in the area. He does not own any weapons, but nothing seemed right that morning. And he drove to the oil site with Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. He was nervous, shaking, didn't know what was going to happen. He knew at the moment that his life was completely changed. He has tried to picture the long ride out to the oil site and wondered if he could have saved his daughter's life. See, I think people were mistaken, and I have to go back and listen to make sure. I believe he was talking to Coder and Tammy about thinking now. He's picturing that ride out to the oil field and thinking what he could have done to save his daughter's lives. He's not talking about while he was driving that day. That's what I think that's about. Okay, but I'm going to listen again to that and we'll discuss it in another video when I go through the tapes again. He wasn't thinking during the entire drive. You see, so right there it tells you he wasn't thinking during the entire drive, so it had to be thinking after the fact. He has read books about how dads could never hurt their children, and he has wondered, was I even a dad at one point? I don't know. He had wanted his whole life to be a dad, and nothing made sense, including the oil tanks. During the ride, the girls were dozing on and off. They held each other and laid in each other's laps. During the ride, Bella said, "Daddy, it smells." And then he talked about smelling a skunk. Okay? When he got to the oil site, he took Shanann out of the back of the truck and he pulled her over and laid her on the ground near where she was ultimately buried. And Bella and Celeste were still sitting in the back of the truck as he removed Shanann. Bella and Celeste asked him, "What are you doing to Mommy?" He doesn't recall what he told them. He returned to the truck, and Cece was first. Celeste had a blue Yankees blanket that she always carried around with her. That's her favorite blanket, and he put it over her head, he says, and he strangled Celeste in the back seat. He put his hand over Celeste's mouth and nose over the blanket and his other hand around the front of Celeste's neck. Bella was seated right beside Celeste as he strangled her, but Bella didn't say anything. He had no idea how long it took to strangle or smother Celeste. He had no concept of time. With regard to what he was thinking at this time, he says, "I wasn't. If I was thinking, this wouldn't have happened," or any partial hint. If he had any partial hint of what he felt for those girls, that's Ronnie talk, those girls, and what I feel for my wife, then none of this would have happened, so I wasn't thinking. After Celeste died, he took Celeste out of the truck, and you see, he says here, walked her up to the oil tank instead of carried her up. I have to listen on the audio if he says walked. He opened the hatch, he dropped her inside, feet first. Coder was asking him about the fit. He said he believed it was tight when he put Celeste through the hatch, but he didn't have to hit her through the tank. And Coder said, "You mean like stomp her through?" Yeah. But May had to manipulate her a bit to get her inside. He closed the hatch on the oil tank and returned to his truck. When he got in the truck, Bella asked him, "What happened to Cece?" Bella asked him in her soft voice, "Is the same thing going to happen to me as Cece?" He said he's not sure if he told Bella yes, like a horrible person. He then put the same Yankees blanket over Bella's head and did the same thing. Bella said, "Daddy, no." This is another thing. In another part of the audio, I think it's when he goes over it, it might be in the second part, he says, "No, Daddy." And Chris doesn't get words mixed up that are real. He will go over and over and over them. The same way. He'll put things in order, the way he packed things, and it's always in the same way. He put his hand over Bella's nose and mouth, over the blanket, and his other hand on the front of her neck. With regard to Bella's injuries, and that was very strange, and we went over this last night, he was asking Temple, like, what, you mean her lip came up? What, didn't even sound like he was there. You know, it was very odd, very, very odd. With regard to Bella's injuries in her mouth, he said Bella's head was twisting back and forth under the blanket while he strangled her. He could hear Bella grunt as she tried to breathe. He noticed a couple of spots over Bella's eyes when he picked her up. He walked Bella, again says walked here, up to a separate oil tank. He opened the hatch and dropped her inside feet first. Bella seemed harder to get into the tank than Celeste, but he just had to manipulate her to get her inside. He does not know why he put Bella and Celeste in separate oil tanks. Bella and Celeste were not alive when he put them in the oil tanks. After he put Bella into the oil tank, he returned to where Shanann was located and he started to clear out some weeds with his rake. The rake broke when he used it to remove weeds, and he left part of it out on the site. He does not believe that he ever thought about going back for the broken part of the rake. He dug a hole with his shovel and put Shanann inside. Shanann was not bleeding or cut when he buried her. He recalled that Shanann's eyes were bloodshot. Shanann had not partially given birth when he buried her in the ground. Shanann was wearing a shirt and blue-colored underwear. Every time he closes his eyes, he hears Bella say, "Daddy, no." But there's a switching of those words in that tape. He hears it every day. Just thinking about the oil tank makes him want to throw up. Frank Rzucek said at his sentencing that he was trying to separate everyone, and that was not true. He felt like someone else was in control of what he was doing. Yeah, maybe. He did not consider the fact that it may have helped with detection by putting the girls in separate tanks. He didn't consider putting the girls with Shanann because everything happened so fast, and I had no time to really have a thought that was my own. He didn't try purposely to separate any of them. With regard to the trash bags found at the oil tank site, he said he didn't want his girls looking at Shanann in the back seat of his truck, so he placed one trash bag on her feet and the other one around her head. The girls didn't know what was going on. After the murders, the Yankee blanket was still in his truck and he threw it away. He stopped by a construction dumpster in his neighborhood and threw away his clothes and the Yankees blanket on the way home from work Monday. He keeps extra boots and clothes in his work truck. See, the blanket is not true because they even said they thought they saw it. And remember when I told you he was doing that switch when they lost sight of him in the surveillance on the 14th? That's when I believe he grabbed the blanket. I believe he threw it away in the airport. He said some trash bin. He said he threw his clothes at that site, at that comp house. I think that's what he meant here. And they keep saying construction site. When he went to look at that house for a minute, but I don't believe he threw the blankets there. I believe the blankets went into the airport garbage. And the other thing was, I don't know what the other thing was. Oh, in regards to the trash bags. Okay, one might say, well, maybe he put the trash bags on her in case she had a leakage of fluids and he didn't want to stay in the truck. But he wouldn't have also needed to put another one around her head. And I don't think he had trash bags on her. I think that's just another indication that those trash bags were what the girls were in. That's my thinking, okay? Because I think if he put one on the bottom, he would have just worried about the bottom where the fluids would be leaking and not have to cover her head as well. But I don't know. I mean, he had a roll of trash bags in the car. So he might have had the bottom lined under her with trash bags. Okay. Let's see. So he said that he keeps extra boots and clothes in his work truck, which he changed into after the murders. He felt like taking Celeste and Bella's lives was caused by anger with Shanann, and he took it out on everyone in front of him that morning. Okay, would make more sense than if that was the truth, that he killed them in quick succession, not having, 27 minutes or more to get his breakfast calmly, and he remembered his cottage cheese. He was so angry, but he got his cottage cheese, right? So angry he did all that. We saw him walking back and forth to the truck. He didn't look like he was in any type of a rage. And then he had that, 45-minute ride to work. So even people with very severe tempers, over an hour, and will sober you up a little bit, right? And get you thinking right. Okay. So that's another reason. If it was caused by some rage, I think it was done in quick succession. Okay. He had never been angry before. Never. And this was like the epitome of being angry. He had rage and lost his mind. He was angry with Shanann over separating him from his family. When he and Shanann got married, he told his family he didn't need them anymore. Now, this whole part right here sounds like this has been drilled into his head since this happened from Mama and Papa Watts. When he and Shanann got married, he told his family he didn't need them anymore because he had Shanann. He cussed his mother out and did things to his family that he never thought he would do. He is not sure if Shanann coached him or not, referring to how he treated his family. Yeah, it's very convenient now that he could say, I'm not sure if she coached me or not, right? When people saw him, like Shanann's friends, arguing with his mother on the phone without Shanann doing anything. He was angry since July 2018 when Shanann told him his parents could not see his granddaughters again. I don't know if that had something to do with it. Something inside me just triggered it, and it was just like it was all that pent up from the wedding and everything. From the wedding? Really? So that would kind of be your mom's fault then, right? So you'd have that anger towards mom, but I'm sure they twisted it. Mm-hmm. It's like a long fuse that just finally went to its end. Sounds like it's been fed to him. His mother and Shanann never got along after he proposed. His mother and Shanann never agreed on anything. His mother possibly thought that Shanann wasn't good enough for him. His mother always thought that Shanann was hiding something from her past from him. His mother and sister didn't like Shanann and felt that Shanann took him away from them and moved him out to Colorado, even though he explained it was a mutual decision after they visited friends. His grandmother was the only one who came to the wedding. He danced with his grandmother and his friend's mother during the groom's dance at the wedding. He would never have thought his marriage and relationship to Shanann was bad if he hadn't met Nicole. He looks outside every day and wonders what he could be doing now with his kids. Right now I'd have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and more than likely a 1-month-old son and a beautiful wife, and right now it's just me. With regard to finding Shanann was pregnant with Nico, Shanann, he said, got pregnant with Nico within 2 weeks of trying, and he was surprised and scared when he found out that Shanann was pregnant. He may have not looked excited about the pregnancy because he may have felt guilty about talking to Nikki at work. There were never any indications of domestic violence between him and Shanann during their relationship. Shanann was the dominant person who always took control of everything. He always just went with the flow and was always wanted to be in the back row. He never felt belittled by Shanann. He was the introvert, and Shanann took control of most situations. He hated being in videos, but he went along with it because it was for Shanann's business. And he said, it was to help their family and everything. They needed the money. He couldn't tell Shanann he didn't want to be in the videos because it would have made her mad. Shanann was a good salesperson and could have sold everything that someone was wearing back to them without them even knowing. He hated being out there for everyone to see and was against doing their gender reveal on Facebook Live. Yeah, that's not why. He didn't want to do a gender reveal on Facebook Live in case any of Nikki's friends had saw it, because at that point he already deleted the Facebook so Nikki's friends wouldn't see it. So why would he want to do a gender reveal where they would see it? With regard to what Chris planned to do about his missing family, he said he had no idea what he was going to do. He didn't understand how he was going to act normal around his coworkers. His plan was not well thought out and not a Criminal Minds type of thing. Really, Chris? I never would have thought that. It seems very, very well thought out, very, very put together. I'm surprised they caught you so quickly. With regards to how Chris felt when he wore his Thrive patches, he said when he put on the Duo Burn patches, his Apple Watch would show he was exercising all day because his heart rate was increased. He said that Nikki told him that he would sometimes fall asleep on her couch in the middle of a conversation and wake up and finish what he was saying. He felt that the Duo patches, he felt different on the Duo patches, the Duo Burn patches, than when he wore any other Thrive patch. The Duo Burn patches made him feel like he could go on longer and longer each day. He only slept approximately 3 hours each night. Looking back, he realized God gave him plenty of opportunities for him to get out, referring to his relationship with Nikki. His friend Jeremy Lindstrom asked him to go to a Broncos game on Saturday, August 11th, and he said no. He should have gone with Lindstrom and told Nikki he couldn't find a babysitter. Being away from Nikki might have caused a light switch to go off in his head. If he would have gone to the Broncos game, it might have put him on a different trajectory. He wished now that he and Shanann only went to North Carolina for 1 week and that Shanann wasn't gone for 5 weeks straight. When the incident with Celeste and the nuts occurred at his parents' house, which he referred to as Nutgate, which means that he's getting information about what's going on social media from his parents about the Nutgate and the podcast and all that stuff, right? Yep. He said he could have stopped everything with Nikki and concentrated on fixing his relationship with Shanann and his family. Shanann and her parents got into a serious argument over the nut incident. His nephew told Bella to hide behind the curtain because he didn't think Shanann would ever let her come back again. That sounds like a totally fabricated line from someone like his sister or his mother trying to manipulate the situation to make Shanann, who's no longer here to defend herself, look bad. Oh, you know, Jamie's son, he told her to hide behind a curtain because she's so bad, that Shanann. We're afraid she's never going to let her come back again. That doesn't sound like manipulation. No. Shanann was convinced. His mother tried to kill their daughter by putting nuts in front of Celeste. His mother felt like Celeste's allergy was not serious. After the nut incident, with Celeste, he didn't speak to his parents until August 6th. His parents said, "We're not sure if we could ever forgive Shanann for that nut incident," which is really ironic when the Rzuceks say they don't hate him for killing their daughter and granddaughters. That's pretty amazing, but his parents don't know if they can forgive Shanann for the nut incident, and it didn't even happen the way they're saying it happened. Okay, Cindy was in the wrong. She can't even take responsibilities for her actions, but she's holding this grudge, yet quotes scripture in the Bible, but I guess forgets certain parts of it. Okay, because she's telling her son that, so she's creating a wedge there, she's creating tension, she's creating all of that in there, in that marriage. Very good, very good. Good thing. His parents asked him if he had someone else, because he was texting with someone the entire time he was at their house in North Carolina. Shanann told him that he wasn't allowed to call or talk to his parents, and that is a total lie, because we see it in her text. She said he could go there. She didn't want her kids there because of what happened. His dad, she invited them to the birthday party, which they didn't show up to. So that's all a lie. Again, a fabricated lie for manipulation. His dad was his hero and he felt like he lost him because he wasn't able to talk to him for 3 weeks. That's a lie. He was texting with his father. He was even deleting text. Okay. His father took off the entire week when they were in North Carolina, but Shanann booked them for 5 days at the beach instead. Yeah, she should feel bad because she wants to take her kids to the beach the week you came down. That's really something bad, Chris. Maybe your parents could have went to the beach too. I heard that they did go to the beach. They just didn't go with you. With regard to his parents asked him if he had someone else because he was texting the whole time he was at their house in South Carolina. His parents asked him if he had someone else because he was texting someone the entire time he was at their house in North Carolina. Shanann told him he wasn't allowed to call or talk to his parents. That's a lie. Her texts prove that's a lie. She said he could. She even invited them to Celeste's birthday party. She just said she didn't want her children over the house again because Sydney could not respect Celeste or understand Celeste's allergies and thought they were made up and then put nuts around her. His dad was his hero and he felt like he lost him because he wasn't able to talk to him for 3 weeks. That's not true. They were texting. He was even deleting texts. He could have talked to his father. He just didn't choose to. His father took off the entire week when they were in North Carolina. If he did, great. Shanann booked them for 5 days at the beach instead. Okay, it's a wonder she would want to go to the beach with her kids for the first time to ever have them on the beach, right, Chris? That's a bad thing. Yes, it's very bad. Your parents could have went there to the beach just as Frank was there with you guys. Okay, your parents could have done the same thing. In fact, they went to the beach. They just didn't go where you were. So call a spade a spade. With regard to what Chris and Nikki talked about regarding their future, and Nikki said that she would help him find an affordable apartment around Brighton or Fort Lupton, and that she did not want him to move in with her. Sure. That's why he spent every night there in July, right? Yeah, sure. It would have been too soon to move in with Kessinger because it would have been too soon to move in with Nikki because they had only been dating about a month. But it wasn't too soon to spend every single night from June 27th through to when he left for North Carolina. Yeah, that wasn't too soon. Nikki said she let him come over because her dog liked him and she felt like he belonged there. Shanann always checked his cell phone, so he communicated with Nikki on his work phone. Lie, because she told him to stop using the work phones. That's how we know they had burner phones. He used a secret calculator app on his cell phone to store his and Nikki's pictures. He deleted his Facebook account on August 8th after Nikki told him that she told her friends about him. August 8th, very interesting. The day that he went to her house with the Toyota windshield wipers and the touch-up paint, the day he had to rush back to go to the ultrasound. So was Nikki telling him this when he was leaving? And I'm gonna get you, you're going back again, I can't believe it, and I told my friends they're gonna look you up on Facebook, and they're gonna go and they're gonna find you on Facebook, right? Sounds like he said he had to talk her off the ledge many times. Sounds like he said she would get pissed. Sounds like she was flipping out, okay? Sounds like she was flipping out. He said that Nikki's friends would try to look him up, okay, and would see that his wife was pregnant, and that's why he did that. With regard to if he and Nikki ever fought, he said they never fought, but he had to calm her down a few times. He had to talk her off a ledge. I think were his exact words. He said he would get upset when she realized she would always be the other person and that he would always put his wife first. The first incident where she realized he would put his wife first was when he had to leave her house on July 4th when Shanann had called 10 times and he had to go home. He told her just because he had to leave didn't mean she needed to take a step back because she was, okay, you've got to leave. I'm pulling out. I'm leaving this relationship. There's her manipulation tactic. And then she told him she thought it would be better if they didn't see each other the rest of the day. But then she couldn't hold out, so she ended up asking him to come over after she returned from a baseball game, and he went over to her house. Nikki had set up a couple of dates on her eHarmony app, and the men never showed up. He didn't know Nikki was dating other people until a few weeks later. Nikki thought he was different because he would fix things around her apartment for her, which no one had done before in the past. And I told you last night, I think that's a slip of the tongue. When he was talking about the eHarmony, Coder had asked him, was she using that to manipulate you about going on dates? And he kind of hemmed and hawed and maybe a bit, and then he went right into this fixing thing. And I think what came into his mind was, You have to fix this. Because you go back into Nikki's interview, when she talks about this eHarmony thing, after she denied it in other interviews, she brings up the thing about you have to fix this, okay? And I think he remembers it, and it's coming back in bits and pieces, but now, yeah, you fix things around the apartment, okay? You fix things. I really think that's something a trigger in his head. They asked him about Jim. He said it was her friend from a long time ago. For a long time, he worked out in the oil fields of, I believe he said, North Dakota, together with Nikki. Okay, with regards to selling their house, Shanann's and Chris's house, he said around the first week of August, Shanann sent him an email with the realtor's name about selling the house, and the realtor recommended they get pre-approved for another house before they sold their house. He and Shanann talked about buying a home in Brighton so they could stay in the Adams 12 school district. That's funny. Adams 12? You remember Adam 12, 1 Adam 12, 1 Adam 12? Yeah. Coder actually reminds me of the blonde-haired cop, the one that was a little bit heavier. I kind of like the dark-haired one. I think when I was like 4 and I used to watch that, he was my TV husband. Okay. So let's see here. He and Shanann had a lot of stress during their marriage, which included Shanann's parents living there for 16 months and not having much time alone. He never thought he and Shanann would have to file for bankruptcy. Most of the bankruptcy dealt with credit card debt from their wedding. They had a lot, even though the Watts keep saying they paid for the wedding, right? They had a lot of doctor bills from the girls always being sick, and they were behind on mortgage payments. Shanann was sending checks for their homeowners association to the wrong address for an entire year, and that's why they had the lawsuit, he says. He says he didn't have access to their bank account on his cell phone and never asked Shanann to see the account. Ever since he sold his four-wheeler for less than what he owed on it, Shanann wouldn't let him do anything with the finances. With good reason. When he worked at Longmont Ford, he would just bring Shanann's paycheck. Okay, so what's wrong with that? She was handling the finances. Big freaking deal. With regard to Watts calling the school the morning after the murders, he was freaking out about what he had just done, and he said it was stupid to call the school or the realtor. It made sense that they were suspicious about him because he probably sounded eccentric on the phone. With regard to why Watts pled guilty, he said, I didn't want anybody else. I didn't want them to go through this for 2 to 4 years. I didn't want my attorneys to lie for me for 2 to 4 years. Oh, so he's admitting that everything would be a lie. His defense would be a lie. They would have done anything I told them to do. I don't see how they can do that. Like, that's what attorneys do. Like, they take their defendant and they say, hey, like, what happened? Okay, we'll go with that story. A few weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about everything that happened. His attorneys asked him if he was ever offered a plea to plead guilty, would he take it? He said he would plead guilty in order to end it all. His attorneys asked him about 100 times if he was sure he wanted to take the plea deal. He doesn't talk about all the crying and the screaming that we heard about with the plea deal, right? He doesn't talk about any of that emotion that we heard. And where did we hear that from? Cindy Watts and Watts family, wasn't it? Before he walked into the courtroom, his attorneys asked him again if he's sure he wanted to take the plea deal. His attorneys never told him he had to take the plea deal, and they had a lot of creative motions to file, and they were ready to fight, though Cindy claims that was not so. He told Walsh he didn't want him to fight for something where the story wasn't true, but it only would have gotten worse for everyone. He does not regret taking a plea deal, but he never thought he'd be in prison for the rest of his life. He didn't want for everyone to have to relive this case day after day after day. He told his parents the night before he pled guilty that he was pleading guilty for a reason. His parents had received correspondence from people all over the world who told them that Thrive was not FDA approved and can alter someone's mind. His parents still believe he was railroaded and felt pressure to plead guilty. He does not feel he was pressured because his defense team asked him plenty of times. His parents talked to him about using the defense CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, for being in an emotionally abusive relationship. I'm sure he means the relationship with Cindy, right? Is that what you guys think? I don't think that's what Cindy wants us to think. He could relate to some of the information, but it doesn't make up for what happened. And when he talks to his parents on the phone, they believe there's a chance he could get out of prison. It's called denial. Denial, right? On his parents' bad days, they tell him he should fight it. His mother loses it a lot on the phone. Do you have a hard time picture Cindy losing it a lot? For some reason, I don't. His dad always tells his mother not to talk about it with him on the phone because that Chris will go back to his cell and think about it all night. Can you picture that, Ronnie? And Ronnie's probably very complacent. I'm surprised. You know what I'm surprised about? The mother's going on and on and on and on about how Chris killed his family because he was in an abusive relationship where he was stepped on, he wasn't allowed to voice his emotions. Daughter's going on about it too. Aren't they afraid Ronnie's going to snap if this is so true and kill them? Because it seems like that's what's going on in that household, doesn't it? Interesting. And how Ronnie is probably very calmly telling the mother, please don't talk to him about that. Okay, don't, because he'll go back to his cell and then he'll think about that all night. You've got to stop. Please stop. Please, I'm begging you, stop. Cindy, please stop. Please. Shut up, Ronnie. He plans on telling his parents the truth about what happened when they visit him in April or May. His parents sold his toolbox so they could afford to travel. Now, again, we talked about this last night. His toolbox was his property. His tools were his property. Does he not owe restitution in the legal documents to the Rzucek family? I don't believe it's legal for them to sell his toolbox and his tools to buy an airline ticket. Thinking that any money he makes, especially with the wrongful death suit, needed to go to the Rzuceks. Interesting. In October 2018, the prosecutors went to Sandy and Frank Rzucek and asked them about a possible plea deal instead of the death penalty. His defense team told him there wasn't enough evidence on certain things, and he told the defense team it needed to end. He felt like his attorneys were fair and were similar to guidance counselors. He sounds so immature. He felt like he wasn't in charge of his own decisions regarding this case. His attorney told him that he needed to show more emotion in court so he didn't look like a cold person. His attorneys told him that he could look at the crime pictures, and he refused. He prayed for the hazmat workers and anyone else who had to see the aftermath. His attorneys told him that if the case went to court, he would have to look at the pictures so he didn't have a reaction when they were shown in court. And Chris asked if Sandy and Frank Rzucek had to see the crime pictures, and he was told no. He didn't want Sandy and Frank Rzucek to have to see any of the pictures, or hear anyone talk about what they saw, or hear anyone bash their daughter's memory. Okay, maybe you should voice that a little more, Chris, especially to the Facebook groups that are working with your family and bashing the memory of Shanann, putting out podcasts about her and her family. Maybe you should talk to them. Maybe that would be a good idea. Good starting point. Okay. He didn't, He wanted everyone to know Shanann was a loving wife and always helped everyone else. He remembered that Tammy Lee and Special Agent Coder came into the room after his father left and tried to get the true story from him. He wanted to bang his head against the table. He didn't want Coder and Baumhofer and Tammy to have to get on the witness stand and testify about what they saw. He didn't want everyone to have to relive what happened over and over for years, and he felt like Shanann's family could start to have closure. With regard to if his decision involved not having the death penalty, when he was in his cell in Weld County Jail, he felt like he should have died, he said. All the inmates would yell at him at night, and they would explain to him all the ways he could kill himself in his cell by drowning himself in the toilet or hanging himself. He didn't kill himself because he felt he might have a different purpose. He prayed to God that God would move him away from Colorado. He heard there was a hit on him in Colorado. He felt like he wouldn't last a week in Colorado before somebody would kill him. He felt like God moved him to Dodge for a reason. Instead of wanting to get out of Dodge, he certainly wanted to get into Dodge, right? With regard to if Watts thought about trying to use the defense about Shanann killing the girls at trial, he said he never thought about Shanann killing the girls until it was mentioned to him during the interrogation. After it was mentioned that Shanann might have killed the girls, he just went with it. Just went with it. It's all, man. It's all good, man. He knew his dad was out in the lobby, and his parents would probably believe Shanann was involved because they never liked her. He said his mom and his sister, yeah, they'll fall for it because they never liked Shanann. They were always jealous of her. So his mother would say, I didn't have this when I was getting married. I didn't have that. I didn't have this. I didn't have that. And we know that there was a lot of jealousy with her looks and Jamie by what's been going on with the podcast and having to call Jamie beautiful and call Shanann all kinds of names like a queen that needed to be told she was beautiful over and over. Yeah, not true. Okay. Let's see here. I never thought about that story, and that's what my attorneys are going with. That's what my attorneys were going with. 2 weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about what happened, and they were quiet and they took notes. They wrote it all down. His attorneys told him that they wouldn't judge him, and they appreciated his honesty. They appreciated his honesty. Very honest. And they told him that, most times the defendant doesn't really tell us what happened. But he, so caring, he didn't want them to have any surprises to come up during the trial or anything. He wanted them to be prepared so that they knew all the things that really happened. And with regards to his past, his childhood, he was always someone who tried to coax people down, like the way he coaxed NK down from the ledge. He was in one fight in his entire life, and it was in the 3rd grade, and he and the other kid ripped each other's shirts and left crying. He wasn't popular, but he wasn't bullied in school. He had braces and a Jim Carrey bowl cut haircut. He never talked to many people in school, even though people knew who he was. He never had a girlfriend in high school and always flew under the radar. He didn't have low self-esteem, but he also didn't want to be part of a group or a clique. He had a couple of friends and appreciated his close-knit relationships. His sister was always the popular one and was outgoing. He and his grandmother would sit outside the middle school, and his sister would always be the last one out because she had to talk to everybody in the hallway. He was the opposite of his sister. He didn't want to be popular. He just wanted to be a regular guy. He cannot recall anything he would have pent up from his childhood. With regard to how his father's addiction affected him, his father became addicted to a white powdery substance, possibly cocaine, after he left home. I love how he didn't know it was cocaine, but yet he knew about CDs and cutting it on CDs, right? This is where he sounds like a complete child. When he talked to his father about his addiction, his father immediately changed the subject. His father was coping with the fact that Chris never came back home. His mother initially believed his father was having an affair because he couldn't account for missing money. He had never used drugs and tried to talk to his father about why he was using drugs. He told his father he was throwing his life away. His father lost a lot of weight, his nose bled all the time. But after Watts talked to his father stopped using drugs. Chris must be very powerful that he was able just to stop a cocaine addiction just by talking to his father. That's great. He should maybe open up a rehab. His father always came to every one of his sporting events. His father would come to games even when Chris wasn't going to play. He never saw his father cry. His mother was a loving mother and gave affection, though he never explained what affection was. And Tammy had to say, I mean hugs and kisses, which we never heard. He said if there was something wrong, he would never have told anyone, just dealt with it himself. When she asked about affection, he said, oh yeah, she asked me what was going on. He thinks that's affection. Chris kisses and hugs Chris. Never heard anything. I don't know if growing up that way kept me that way. Deal with things on your own, but then they build up so much that you can't deal with them. And they take a hold of you. Hold of you that you never thought in a way that they could ever take hold of you. Okay, so they also said in regards to Cindy and the affection that she would ask how he was doing. They didn't say anything about hugs, but when he talked about the Rzuceks, he said, when we were leaving North Carolina. Now, I don't know whether he's talking about when we were leaving North Carolina to move to Colorado or when they were just leaving this last time. He said, Shanann's family, all of them crying, Shanann crying. He said, his family, nothing. And he wondered why that is. And I said it last night. Because the Rzuceks have a heart and feelings and emotions and love and affection. And they show it. With regard to Chris planting evidence, after he murdered Shanann, he said he threw her cell phone and Apple Watch on the couch. If he had planned it, he would have taken her items out to the oil tank site with him. He took off Shanann's wedding ring and put it on the counter so it looked like she didn't want to fix her marriage and wanted a divorce. He threw the therapy book away in the trash so it looked like she believed nothing would work in her marriage. He may have gone down to the basement to get trash bags, because when they were talking about why was the motion alarm in the basement door, the garage door, there was a lot of movement, you must have been running around like a lunatic. Yeah, he couldn't remember, okay? This guy couldn't remember why he would have went down to the basement, and then at the last minute says maybe garbage bags. With regard to what he did after he went into the house that afternoon on Monday, Watts was in the house for approximately 1 minute before he went to the front door. He went in through the garage and opened the front door. He ran upstairs and pretended to look around for Shanann and the girls. Nicole Atkinson's son found Shanann's cell phone. With regards to Watts looking in the passenger side of the vehicle, he doesn't recall doing that. And then he said, well, maybe I did it for the car seats. No, that wasn't it, Chris. You crouched down and you did something on the seat. He threw the sheets to their bed away the day after the murders. Well, you didn't do it the day they were in. Weren't they in the garbage that day? Because everything was off the beds. When you strangle someone, sometimes they evacuate their bowels, and that occurred with Shanann, and that was the reason he threw the sheets away. With regards to his communication with his father, the morning he picked him up from the airport, he said it was strange when he picked his father up because he knew it probably would be the last time he'd see him on the outside, His father just wanted to talk about sports when they were in the car, but his father always tries to deflect the conversations and change the conversations when they need to discuss something important. That's good. So his father can't confront things. His father deflects from things that might, cause conflict or anything. Yeah, good way of getting to the bottom of things. His father asked Chris if he knew where Shanann and the girls were. Maybe kind of figured out something happened, and he just needed to talk to me as a son, as opposed to what else would he talk to you as, Chris? He was told his father never left during his entire polygraph interview. If his father knew what actually happened, his father would have told him, just fess up and admit to what you've done. His mother was always the more aggressive one in his parents' marriage. Now, Tammy asked him about his parents' marriage and if it was like his and Shanann, but instead of talking more about his mother, which seems like he can't talk about things about her because it's too hard, or maybe he gets too angry, I don't know. But he changed it to Shanann's family. So he said his marriage and Shanann's seemed to mirror Shanann's mom and dad's relationship, similar to her mother, and he was similar to her. Shanann was similar to her mother, and he was similar to her father. Shanann's mother always told her that she would marry someone like her father. Shanann's father always liked him because he helped fix Shanann's car when they were dating, instead of just standing there watching Frank do something. He, Chris, has always been the one to help out people, not hurt them. Now, that all changes by what you did there, buddy. He never tried to change Shanann, just murdered her. Yeah. Shanann's husband in her first marriage was more like her mother, and it didn't work. Yeah, and it didn't work with you either, Chris, in a very horrible way. At least her first husband didn't kill her. With regard to if Watts knew, walking into the police department the morning of the polygraph, that he would confess to what happened, he said he knew there was a reason he was brought back into the police department that following day. The polygraph was horrible, he said. He was asked questions for 3 to 4 hours before the polygraph, and it's just like breaks you down. Gets somebody to where their brain is just like mush or jello. I know you guys have a job and you have a plan and you executed it. And they're also saying in that group that, is that ethical? What they did to him, is that ethical? Are these people like on a different planet? Do you know what interrogation tactics are? You can even use deception. I really question the intelligence. He knew when he was asked about what he did on Saturday night and he had to talk about the Rockies game, it was going to be a tough interview. He knew when he was asked about what he did on Saturday night and he had to talk about the Rockies game, that it was going to be a thorough interview. Yeah, Chris, that kind of happens. They're pretty thorough down at the police station when you have a CBI agent and an FBI agent and a polygraph. They're pretty thorough. Who would have thunk it, right? I don't know. Wow. Insightful. I'm glad you let us know that. Walking in there that day, just walking into that room, I knew I wasn't walking out. With regards to the media interviews, he said he never wanted to speak with the media. He felt like the media was going to continue to knock on his door until he answered. Nicole Atkinson called him and told him Fox would be at his house at 10:30 for an interview. He doesn't even want to know what he said or what he looked like on the news because some people said it made him look worse after the fact. He ended up just lying to more and more people by talking to the media. He heard he looked like a heartless, soulless person. With regard to if Watts spoke to Nikki after the murders, he spoke to her on the 13th, and he said that they spoke and texted. They spoke on the phone and texted, and Nikki said that she believed Shanann took off with his daughters. Now, on Tuesday night, she kept asking him weird questions through text messages to determine if it was really him. Okay, this was interesting. This weird questions, because this was something that the investigators likened to her thinking that Chris was, arrested or whatever. Someone had his phone. Chris made it sound like Shanann would have his phone. But Tammy blew that out of the water because the kind of questions Nikki was asking was, what's the name of your dog? Questions that Chris would know. And Chris said, well, to make sure Shanann didn't have the phone. But then Nikki said, wouldn't Shanann have known the answer to what was the name of your dog? How would that help her? So they got out of him that she was probably thinking, is detectives have your phone? Okay, are they gonna try to trick me here? What was she hiding? Her brain is always thinking, right? And remember, go back to what she said about Dave Cologne watching the house, and that meant he was involved in the investigation? Was that something like, oh, if Dave Cologne calls me for any reason, remember that he's in this investigation. Don't be telling them anything. She sounds like a very, very guilty person. That's all I'm saying. Like she's hiding something. Okay. So, on the 14th, she kept asking him weird questions. That's to try to determine if it was really him. And then she asked him what his dog name was and what yoga studio he went to. It was possible that she believed Shanann had the cell phone and was just making sure. We've just determined that that wasn't the case. Nikki told him it was the last time he would hear from her and that she was going to stay with her friend Jim. Now, I thought he just said she was going to stay with friends in the interview. I have to listen if he said that she was going to stay with her friend Jim. She told him not to contact her until this is done. And she told him to delete everything on his cell phone. And that's when Tammy was like, why would she tell you to delete everything? Or why would they? And he goes, I don't know. She just said, delete everything. So I deleted it. Yeah, she doesn't sound like she's controlling, right, Chris? She said delete it, so I deleted it. He said he didn't delete everything from her, and he's not sure why. When he was on vacation in San Diego, he told his friend Mark about her, Nikki. Mark had a similar situation occur when he started dating a female who was engaged, and the female ended up cheating on him. He never completely opened up to Mark about Nikki and wished he did, because Mark may have been able to offer him some advice. With regard to Nikki being directly or indirectly involved in the murders, he said, she had her moments where I had to talk her like off a ledge kind of deal. His father, or his attorney, told him about a few videos that Nikki made where she was talking about being bipolar. She would get worked up about nothing. She came to his house one time on July 4th. Now, about those bipolar videos, in the tapes, the audio, he says, my father told me about bipolar videos she made where she was talking to herself. So I racked my brain and said, what is he talking about? Someone said something about a dating site. It's not a dating site, it's the interview videos. You remember the one where she couldn't get the contacts off her phone and the agent kept going out of the room, and at one point she was talking to herself? Okay? Like, I don't know, Nikki, you can't get the, why can't, no, why, oh, I hate this, why can't I get these contacts? You remember she was getting all frustrated trying to get contacts off of her phone to show she wasn't tech savvy when she had already said she was tech savvy? Yeah, she was talking to herself. That must be the interviews they're talking about. He woke up the morning of July 4th at Nikki's house because he didn't have to work that day, and when he woke up he had 10 missed calls from Shanann. He went outside and called Shanann, and Shanann was pissed. Shanann yelled at him and asked him where he was at. He told Shanann he was sleeping, and Shanann told him she didn't know where he was and hung up on him. So he went back inside and told Nikki that he had to go home in case Shanann called back. And this, I think, was because I think he said that Shanann didn't believe where he was and had asked him to take a picture of something inside their house to prove it because she knew he was lying. So that's why he had to go run home. She could have also asked him, if you are home, go ring the doorbell so it comes up on my app. She could have asked him something like that, and that's why she was pissed. And that in turn got Nikki pissed when he went back inside and told her that he had to go home because in case Shanann called back, she asked him if he was going to come back, and he said no. And she was pissed when he left, Nikki. And she felt like she would always be second fiddle. She told him that she researched online if mistresses could turn into a real relationship. Oh, she sounds stable. Yeah, and I'm looking online to see if a mistress can turn into a real relationship. Around the first week of August, he told Nikki that he had talked to Shanann about separating, so she started looking for apartments for him. But she never asked him to get rid of his family. His relationship with her contributed to the murders, but she never actually asked him to do anything. He said that she knew, he said he didn't know if she wanted to ever have kids, but she told him she wished she could give him a son. And he claims that she never knew she was pregnant, to which you could hear the exasperation from Tammy's voice saying, "Come on, Chris, are you a stupid moron or what?" That is on Facebook, and Shanann's page is public. Has nothing to do with you deleting your page. She could have seen that, and she definitely saw that. Stop playing a fool. Oh, he said it was possible that she could have seen it on Facebook, but she never mentioned it to him. Shirley Dirty. Okay, With regard to the possibility that his son was named after her, he said, nope, Shanann picked the name for their son. He wanted to spell it Niko, but Shanann said no. Nico is an Italian name that since Shanann always liked. He did not get to pick any of his children's names, but he told Shanann he liked them. Big freaking deal. With regard to him looking up the lyrics to the Metallica song Battery, he said that Nikki made him do that because she liked the song Battery and asked him what the song meant. He made it out like he didn't really, I think I might have heard a Metallica song. I'm not really a favorite band of mine. I'm really not sure, but he has a freaking Metallica tattoo on himself. Nobody said anything. He's playing dumb about the Metallica, and he's saying that she asked him to look up the lyrics. So he researched the meaning behind the lyrics and learned that it meant a family coinciding as a battery. He said he did not look up the lyrics to the song when he was driving to or from the oil site after the murders. He said that Nikki was into different types of music and Battery was a song she had asked him about because now he says he knew Metallica very well. But when he was there, he was like playing it off. Like he really wasn't like. He said something like, I thought he said, because I know music well, or something. He didn't make it sound like Metallica was a big thing in his life. I know that's the whole vibe I got, and you guys said you got the same one. So now with regards to how he was doing mentally, he said he didn't know that he was being moved to Dodge. And when he was at the Denver Reception and Diagnostic Center, he was put through the ringer. He took 11 separate tests to figure out his IQ, and he said his IQ is about 135 or 140. After dinner one evening, he was told to change his clothes, and he was put into a van and transported to Dodge Correctional. He got staffed at the prison in hopes to get a job soon. He has a female he sees at the prison who asks him how things are going and if he needs any psych meds. He has declined all psych medications. Most of the men in his unit are on medication. He tries to keep a low profile in the prison. And with regard to the food he misses the most, he misses Bojangles, Georgia Boys, barbecue, and Shanann's cooking, her spaghetti sauce and her fried pizza. Shanann had her grandmother's recipe for pizza dough, and she made amazing pizza. With regard to what Watts does with all the letters he received in jail, he said if someone writes him once, he will not write them back. He keeps most of the supportive letters, but will throw away any weird ones. There's a male who's a high school senior and wrote to him, so Watts said he threw the letter away, and then the same male wrote to him a few weeks later and told him that he supported him. Many people, he says, including journalists, have tried writing to him and asking him a lot of questions. He has responded to a few people, but they were people his parents had talked to, so he knew they were real. Many people ask him for spiritual advice. He once had a female write to him who was in an abusive relationship and couldn't find a relationship with God. He had never read the Bible before going to prison, and he has since read it from cover to cover. He writes down a couple of scriptures a day for his parents. His uncle and aunt are missionaries and were amazed at how mature he has become with the Bible. Chris's gift is a great memory, so he tries to help people by memorizing scriptures. He has other inmates write him just to ask him if he could send them some scriptures. If people ask him about the case, he won't write them back. With regard to if he ever thought he would fall in love again, he said, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not the guy that's down the street. What's his name? I think he means Stephen Avery. He heard, I believe it's Stephen Avery, got engaged over a letter and said, that's pretty insane. He heard one female send him a letter while in Colorado, which included a picture of her in a bikini, and the press found out. He does not write back anyone associated with the media. The blank news stations have asked to talk to him, and the prison has declined. He has never thought about writing a book. His parents have suggested he write down how he feels and how he has been dealing with everything. It sounds like his parents are trying to talk him into writing a book. He says he's always had a crazy imagination ever since he was a little kid. He once convinced a teacher in school that he went on a trip to China or Japan over the summer, which was totally not true, but they totally bought every single word of it because he was that good of a liar. Well, creative storyteller. Which Tammy, her ears perked up to that. With regards to what Watts thinks of himself now, when he was incarcerated in Weld County, he said he didn't feel like himself. He wondered how any of his friends could say good things about him after what happened. But he shouldn't take to heart what people think about him, because it's what God thinks about him that matters now. The only thing that matters now. He has asked God for forgiveness. I was hoping they could one day forgive me too. He has done some good things in his life, but he screwed up the most important thing. He hopes that he can help people with the time he has left. It's going to take a long time for the guilt to go away. We talked about this. Parents that have done things accidentally, horrible tragic accidents like running over a child or backing over a child, never can feel that guilt go away. He annihilated his family, but he's saying, he thinks that guilt will go away in time. And he said, people are defining him by one moment in his life. First of all, the way the story he tells here, it's way more than one moment. It went on over almost 2 hours, right, by the time he got out there, okay? Killing 4 souls, right? But that's one moment to Chris. And something that he doesn't feel he should be defined by. No, they should probably look more about that spelling bee you won in the 4th grade. I don't know if he won one, probably not, but I'm just saying. But he thinks, that family annihilation shouldn't be what he's defined by. Can you say delusion? I never knew I could have a relationship with God like I do now. It's like this amazing grace with all of this. But I just wish that no one had to pay the price for this. I know there's a purpose for everybody. I just hope I can find mine. It's great that he found this amazing grace. But he's saying it's really sad they all had to pay for it, Shanann and the kids. You could have just left, Chris. If you found your amazing grace in jail, you could have just checked yourself in. Okay, with regard to what they could have said to him during his interview at the Frederick Police Department to get him to tell the truth, then, he said when he was in the interrogation room, he was nervous. He knew he did something wrong, and he knew they were going to find out. But he made it sound like he had just stolen a pack of gum from the supermarket. It's a bad thing to do, Chris. We're going to find out you stole that gum. And then you're going to need to go down with us to the store manager and apologize. And then you're going to work off that pack of gum, young man. That's how he made it sound like, okay? He didn't even want to admit to himself what he had done. He knew what he did was horrific and how much it was going to hurt other people. He couldn't admit to himself what he had done, so he couldn't admit it to the police. He believed if he wasn't asked about Shanann hurting the kids, it might have come out in a different way. He believed if we would have lied to him and told him that the video we saw showed the kids in the truck, he would have told us the truth. He asked to talk to his dad because he wanted to tell him he loved him and that it was probably the last time he would see him outside of a cell. Now, that's not what he said about the truck video. He said, if you had lied to me about what you saw in that video, and then he asked them something about what they did see in that video. And again, we have coders saying that, would there be any reason that you're telling us the kids were alive when they really weren't when you put them in? But he questioned that video there, okay? Different than it's in here. So he asked to talk to his dad because he wanted to tell him he loved him, and that was probably the last time he would see him outside of a cell. He felt like the interviewers leaving the room from time to time gave him time to stew, and that was a successful tactic. He said he had never seen the picture before of his 2 girls that they showed him, even though Tammy kept saying, but you were talking about that picture. He also claimed to never remember that he was watching videos and claimed they had his phone. So he was clearly not remembering things or pretending not to. He said he had never seen Celeste wearing that white dress. The picture of Celeste and Bella were showed to him and may have come from when they were in North Carolina. Showing him pictures of the girls during the interrogation definitely got in his head. He didn't show any emotion when we showed him the picture because he's the type of person to hold it all in and not show emotion. At the end of the interview, we left. The prison as Watts was required to eat lunch and be present during their count. We told him that we may return after lunch to ask him additional questions, and he said okay. Coder also told Watts that we may come back in a month, in a year, or even in 2 years to speak with him again, and to keep that in the back of his mind. We returned to the prison several hours later to speak with him. We told him that we had some additional questions regarding the events of August 13th, and he agreed to answer additional questions, which are reflected above in the timeline provided by Watts. At the end of the interview, we thanked him. Many thanked him for speaking to us and asked if he would speak to us again in the future, and he agreed. We asked him what he wanted to happen with the information he provided us, and Watts said he figured we would most likely tell Sandy, Frank, and Frankie Rzucek about what we said and give them closure. Detective B said he wasn't sure what he would tell the Rzucek family, and that he had no intention of telling anyone what he said outside of law enforcement. Watts said that he would appreciate being able to tell his parents about what happened before they heard it anywhere else. Before the interview was concluded, Tammy asked Watts if she could take a picture of him for the file. Watts agreed, and 2 pictures were taken and attached to the report, nothing further. So that is the transcription. Okay, so we've gone over our initial thoughts in that live video, which I'll link. We've gone over the transcription here, and I am going to go over probably tomorrow in another video the first audio and different things that I pick out that are different from what's accounted here, and just give me different feelings about what really happened, okay? And then I'm going to have another video on the Frazee search warrants, because there's a lot of good information in there. That will probably be out tomorrow too, but I'm going to try to get this up, premiere it, and have live chat. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I will talk to you very soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.